My parents unloaded all my stuff without even a word to me, stating they needed the money. "It's just useless stuff you don't need," they told me. This is how I made them regret their actions. I never thought I'd be sharing my story here, but I truly need some outside opinions on this, as I think I'm going crazy. What started as a strange hunch has transformed into something I'm still struggling to understand. I got home yesterday after a 2-week business trip. Everything initially seemed fine. My folks welcomed me home like always, asked about my travels, and my mother had even made my favorite lasagna. However, something felt unsettling when I went up to my old bedroom. You know how it is, when something is out of place but you can't quite pinpoint it immediately. I've been staying with my folks while I try to save up to buy a house. Yes, I realize, and I store the majority of my possessions in my old childhood room. The room looked somehow less full. It took me a little bit of looking around before I realized what was absent. My entire gaming collection, which I'd spent years accumulating since I was 12, had vanished. We're talking about rare consoles, special editions, and games that I hunted down for ages. The shelf where I displayed everything was completely empty. Initially, I thought maybe my mom had tidied up and rearranged things. She sometimes does that. So I checked the closet under the bed and the basement. Nothing. My heart started pounding when I couldn't find any of it. The whole collection was easily worth more than $15,000, or even more. Some of those items were, quite literally, unable to be replaced. I made my way down the stairs to question my folks about this, trying to keep my cool. It was their response that really shocked me. My mom barely glanced up from her phone, while my dad simply shrugged and announced, "Oh, we got rid of all that old stuff. You never even touched it anymore. Plus, we needed the cash, just like that." It felt like they were casually telling me they'd tossed out some old mail. When I told them just how much those things were worth, my dad brushed it off with a wave of his hand. "Come on, nobody spends that kind of money on old video games. We got a couple of $100 for the whole shebang. And you should be happy we're letting you live here without paying rent at your age." I kept pushing, inquiring about when they'd sold everything, and why they hadn't even given me a heads up. My mom finally looked up and said, "We didn't think you'd care. It's not like you were using them anyway. Plus, we had some unexpected costs pop up." Something about their offhand manner made me want to know more. I asked what expenses they were referring to, and they immediately became defensive. Dad barked that it wasn't any of my concern, and Mom suddenly needed to check on something in the kitchen. I went back to my bedroom and started searching around more carefully. That's when I realized other things were also gone. My old coin collection from my grandfather. Missing. The old baseball cards I'd been collecting since junior high. Nowhere to be found. Even my academic awards and diplomas from high school had disappeared from the walls. The more I looked around, the more things I found missing. Or I should say, not there. Before my trip, I began taking pictures and compiling a list of all the items I recalled being present. Since she'd been here often and had a memory of how things used to be, my girlfriend came over to lend a hand. However, here's the shock. While we were cataloging everything, she was browsing the local marketplace on her phone and found photos of my belongings being sold just last week. There were several listings with different items, all posted under some random user. The photos were undeniably taken inside our garage. I knew the shelving from the background. They didn't just sell my possessions. They intentionally waited until I was gone on my work trip to do it. The dates and times on the listings confirm it. They started posting items for sale the very day after I left. I'm here looking at pictures of my cherished items from childhood being sold for a fraction of what they were worth, and it makes me feel awful. These weren't just old games. They represented memories. That special edition console. I worked and saved up for 2 years to finally purchase it. The rare games. Some were presents from my brother before he moved overseas. My grandfather's coins were the last thing he gave me before he died. I haven't a clue what to do. My folks keep acting like I'm blowing it out of proportion, but they basically stole thousands of dollars worth of my property and sold it without my knowledge. When I showed them the marketplace listings, they just got mad and said I needed to be more understanding of their circumstances. Whatever that's supposed to imply. I have to determine my future actions now. I've begun transporting the remaining items to my girlfriend's home, though I still find myself thinking about what else they could have sold that I haven't discovered. The more pressing question is, what was their true motivation for doing this? Those unplanned financial obligations they cited. There's something about that explanation that strikes me as wrong. I suppose the reason I'm writing this is I need confirmation that I'm not delusional for feeling so incredibly let down. Perhaps I need guidance about what to do going forward. Has anyone else been through a comparable situation? Should I consider legal action? Should I attempt to find the people who purchased things? Frankly, I never envisioned myself facing this kind of situation. I first want to express my gratitude to everyone who replied to my previous post. The supportive words and guidance you provided were very helpful in helping me organize my thoughts and decide what my next steps should be. A great deal has occurred these past couple of days. Honestly, each conclusion I've reached has only triggered additional questions. I started by documenting all the belongings I could recall I had. My girlfriend assisted me in going through old pictures stored on my phone, where you could catch a glimpse of my room in the background. It's astounding how easily possessions fade from memory until they disappear. After compiling a detailed inventory, I began contacting the people who had bought my stuff. Some of those buyers actually got back to me. The person who bought my special edition game console was incredibly sorry when I described the situation. He mentioned my mom appeared really uneasy during the transaction, constantly glancing around and practically shoving him out the door the moment he gave her the money. He said something felt off, but the deal was just too good for him to say no. That's when it struck me. They must have sold everything for far less than its actual worth, probably just to quickly get some cash. This is where it starts to get strange. After I told my brother what happened, he came over yesterday. He had this look on his face like he wasn't shocked at all. We took a drive, and he finally shared the information he's had for several months. Our parents have been battling a gambling problem, not just small wagers, but significant losses. He had seen money vanishing from their shared account with Mom. He still has a joint account with them for emergencies, but they kept making up stories about home renovations or medical expenses. They've been acting strange lately, he said. Dad's been making these secret trips into the city, and Mom's been making up for him. I just figured they'd get it under control. He stopped speaking, appearing ashamed. I really should have told you guys sooner. I devoted the whole following day investigating further. I learned they were selling other things too, including Mom's jewelry, Dad's golf clubs, and even the antique furniture that belonged to Grandma. Now, here's the craziest part. I carefully reviewed my bank statements and uncovered 2 attempts to transfer money from my account into theirs. Fortunately, they were flagged for verification. They tried to use my saved login information from the last time I used their computer a month ago. When I questioned them about the attempted transfers, Dad just lost it. It wasn't a rage-filled outburst. It was a strange, frantic kind of reaction. He kept repeating that I wouldn't understand. They simply needed a little extra money to get everything back on track. One successful bet, and they could have replaced everything that was gone. Mom just sat there, focused intently on her hands. When I pushed her for information about the gambling, she finally looked up at me and told me that they didn't want me to know. They believed they could solve the situation before anyone found out. Her voice was tiny, so different from how she typically sounded, which was so full of self-assurance. She claimed my father just needed one more opportunity. I contacted our family friend who is a lawyer. She agreed with what many of you had suspected. Their actions were most definitely against the law, even though I live with them. She's currently assisting me with creating a formal demand letter, but she also recommended trying to resolve this within the family initially, considering the situation. The most devastating part? Finding out they sold my grandfather's watch. It wasn't even. It's amazing they got to my possessions. They took them from the safe deposit box where I'd kept them. This was the one thing I was very careful with, and they still managed to get to it. That's when I really started to feel something different. It wasn't just about the money anymore. I've been staying at my girlfriend's apartment now. When I have gone back to my house to gather some more things, it doesn't feel the same. It seems hollow somehow. Not just because of the missing items, but there is this feeling of gloom in the house. My mom acts like everything's okay, asking if I want to eat, telling me about her gardening plans. My dad hardly makes eye contact with me. My brother says we need to stage an intervention. He's likely correct, but I am still trying to figure everything out. The folks who taught me about being responsible and honest are the ones who violated both. Each time I remember another item that's gone, I think of the memory of that item. The exact second it became really important to me, and it hits me all over again. I've managed to find a few more buyers through Marketplace. I'm planning to meet with one tomorrow to hopefully get my card collection from when I was a kid. He sounded like he understood when we talked on the phone, but we will see what it is like in person. It's all so unreal having to essentially repurchase my own belongings. I just received a text from my mother asking for another opportunity to fix things. The thing is, I found records revealing cash withdrawals going back for several months. This wasn't just a last-ditch, one-time situation. It was The pattern they used went on until they had nothing left to sell. I've got to figure out how to safeguard what I still have while also assisting my folks somehow. It's unbelievable that I'm facing both of those things at the same time. Update 2. Things have gotten pretty intense since the last time I wrote. Right now, I'm typing this from my girlfriend's place, and that's where I've been living full-time lately. The last 7 days have been a whirlwind of meetings with lawyers, family arguments, and some surprising revelations that turned everything upside down. Recall that friend of the family who's a lawyer. Well, she helped me write a formal demand letter, but before we sent it, something interesting happened. My brother stumbled upon Dad's laptop one evening while visiting them. It was open. He wasn't being nosy. Dad had, in fact, left a spreadsheet open displaying all their gambling debts. We're discussing way more money than I had originally imagined. The spreadsheet included frequent trips to 3 different casinos, accounts for online betting, and even loans from folks we didn't know. When my brother told me, it was kind of a strange relief I felt. It wasn't because of the sums, those were scary, but finally everything clicked. The unusual trips, the evasive behavior, the intense desire for fast cash. It was all laid out in plain view. I decided to confront them one last time before going the legal path. My brother and girlfriend tagged along to back me up. The talk started off fine, with Mom making coffee like it was just another family occasion. I told them I had seen the spreadsheet, and the look on my dad's face immediately shifted. He reached for his computer, but instead he accidentally tipped over his coffee cup. While he was cleaning up the mess, his hands were trembling so intensely that he could barely grip the paper towels. "You just don't get it," he kept repeating. "We almost recovered everything last month. Another wager and we could have sorted everything out." My mom just sat there, nodding along as if this was perfectly rational. That was when I grasped how serious the situation truly was. They were both completely absorbed in this imagined world of a huge victory that would magically solve everything. What was really strange? Their phones kept dinging with notifications as we spoke. My dad kept looking at his phone, tapping his foot under the table. Afterward, my brother checked their phones. They were notifications from betting applications. They were getting gambling alerts during our family discussion about their gambling issue. The following day, I had my friends send the formal demand letter. It itemized everything they'd taken, including estimated values and evidence of ownership when I had it. The letter came while I was carrying out my final belongings. My mom attempted to act like nothing was amiss, offering to help me pack and asking if I wanted some of her lasagna to take with me. At the same time, my dad was in his office, quietly making phone calls. The day after that, things became very strange, really, really peculiar. My mom showed up at my girlfriend's place unexpectedly, sobbing about how they could resolve everything if I simply gave them a bit more time. She had a box with her. I was shocked to see the old school awards she'd discovered in the attic, the very same ones they had already sold off a few weeks earlier. As I brought this to her attention, she became emotional and confessed that they had been secretly trying to repurchase some of my possessions. It was then that she explained Dad's scheme. It seems he'd convinced himself he'd discovered a guaranteed winning betting method. They had been using the funds from selling my stuff to support this method, convinced they could buy it all back, and then some after it paid off. Their self-deception went so far that they even created a list of replacements they planned to buy for me, including fancier versions of everything they had sold. My brother has been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. He arranged a session with a counselor who specializes in gambling addictions. The counselor clarified that this pattern of behavior, selling family heirlooms, the irrational belief in winning it all back, all clearly indicate a gambling addiction. Understanding this is beneficial, but it does not ease the pain. Yesterday, I got a phone call from a casino manager. It turned out my parents had voluntarily put themselves on the exclusion list only a few hours after getting the demand letter. The manager was calling because Dad had attempted to gain access somehow, claiming he'd forgotten something significant inside. The legal procedure is now underway. My friend assisted me in completing the essential paperwork, and we're attempting to get back whatever we can. Surprisingly, some people have contacted me after viewing my posts on local collecting groups, offering to return items they had purchased. I even had one person decline payment, explaining that he has children and couldn't bring himself to do this to them, but the thing that's been bothering me is this. While looking through the documents, we found out that Mom had just taken out another mortgage on the house. The house I was raised in, the one they've owned for 3 decades, is now completely maxed out with debt. They didn't just squander my belongings, they're risking their entire future. I have a meeting scheduled with the family therapist tomorrow so we can figure out what to do next. Dad is still refusing help, but Mom is finally beginning to seem like she'll accept it. She actually called me last night, not to plead or give justifications, but to inquire about addiction support groups in our area. It's not much, but maybe it's a beginning. I just got a text from my brother. Apparently Dad is attempting to sell their vehicle now, claiming they need it for one final chance. We're quickly running out of time to stop them from losing everything. I suppose sometimes the only way to rescue your parents from their own actions is by taking legal action against them. Final update. It's been 3 months since my previous update, and the situation has worked itself out in a way I never anticipated. Sometimes the best way to get even isn't the way you plan it. It's what the world gives you when you stop trying to control all of it. First off, the legal things did work out, although not in the way we thought. The formal notice got my parents to pay attention, but what really shifted things was an anonymous report to the companies they owed money to. I did not send it. As it turned out, Dad had been. I borrowed money from some seriously shady individuals, and someone must have spilled the beans. The absolute mess that followed somehow ended up benefiting us. Once their loan sharks began to call, my folks finally understood they couldn't keep running. Mom lost it and showed me the actual financial documents. It wasn't only my things they'd pawned off. They had been gradually selling off everything of worth for quite a while, but here's where things get really bizarre. They'd kept meticulous records of every transaction, every gamble, every loss. Not because they were being prudent, but because Dad believed his system would succeed if he simply documented every single detail perfectly. I showed those records to my brother and our family friend who assists us with legal matters. We uncovered something that completely altered the situation. Dad had been using Mom's identity to get loans without her knowing. She had signed documents believing they were for house improvements. When we showed her the proof, she just completely fell apart. Recall how I said they'd mortgage the house? Well, Mom hadn't actually signed those papers. Dad had faked her signature. That's when I made up my mind to do something, but not the way everybody would anticipate. Rather than immediately filing charges, I collaborated with Mom to gather evidence of everything. Every forged signature, every loan taken out without permission, every item that had been stolen. Then I did something that I still feel conflicted about. I leveraged Dad's own record-keeping obsession to our advantage. I had a record of everything he wagered, every defeat, and every modification to his betting methods, all meticulously recorded in that spreadsheet. I gathered everything and provided copies to everyone in our family, to all my friends, and to every creditor who had a legitimate claim. The family blew up. Aunts, uncles, cousins, those who had been lending money, believing it was for medical expenses or to fix up the house, discovered the truth all at once. My dad's elaborate schemes crumbled quickly, but what felt like real vengeance? I helped my mom file for divorce. She had been a prisoner, constantly manipulated and utilized as a bargaining chip in my dad's gambling obsession. Once she became fully aware of his forgeries and the unauthorized loans he'd taken out using her name, she finally understood what was really happening. I made certain she had access to everything, every piece of evidence, every falsified signature, and all the secret accounts. My dad's response when he received the divorce documents was nearly pathetic. He showed up at my girlfriend's place, not enraged but pleading, trying to persuade me that Mom was making an error and that his plan was on the verge of working. That's when I revealed my ultimate move. I showed him the video of him faking Mom's signature on the second mortgage, captured by the home security camera he'd completely forgotten about. Seeing his expression when he understood his own security system had exposed him, that was more satisfying than anything he'd sold. And it gets better. Remember those valuable games and consoles he sold for next to nothing? It turned out that a few of the people who bought them were. I actually encountered some pretty good people. After they saw my posts and joined my groups, they began to contact me. Not to give stuff back, but to show me images of their talks with my dad. In them, he'd basically been giving stuff away because he needed money fast. These screenshots served as proof in the divorce and the criminal case. Mom went to live with my aunt and started going to therapy. She's also collaborating with a money expert to sort out the financial chaos Dad created. We'll probably have to sell the house to clear debts, but at least she's safe now that we have a record of which loans were real and which were not. Dad, he's dealing with trouble from all sides. The real banks are looking at fraud charges. His less-than-honest lenders are, well, being shady lenders, and he's staying in a crummy motel, still thinking his next gamble will fix everything. Just last week, he tried to get my brother to put money into his plan. My brother just sent him a link to Gamblers Anonymous. As for me, I managed to get most of my possessions back somehow. Some people gave the items back directly, and some I had to repurchase. The things I couldn't retrieve, they're just possessions. What's most important is that Mom is secure, Dad is facing the repercussions of his actions, and the reality is out in the open. My girlfriend believes I should feel guilty about basically ruining my dad's life. But here's the deal. I didn't ruin anything. I only revealed what he was doing. He wrecked his own life bit by bit with every bet he made. All I did was... I need to stop protecting him. It's caused a split in our family. There are those who believe I overstepped, and others who feel I should have acted sooner. However, observing Mom reconstructing her life and witnessing her joy makes it all worthwhile. She mentioned yesterday that she slept soundly all night without money worries for the first time in years. It seems that the greatest form of revenge is not always about getting back at someone. Instead, it can be about ensuring the truth is exposed. Dad is still at it, still placing bets, and still believing his strategy will pay off. Although at least he's now doing it solo and he's no longer using us, his own family, as pawns. I received a text from him this morning. He says he misses us and wishes to make up for things. Perhaps someday, I suppose. But for now, my priority is helping Mom and preventing this from ever impacting our family again. One last thing, all those detailed records Dad kept, those have a new use. Those documents are now part of a case study for addiction counselors. It seems his compulsive cataloging of his system is assisting other families in recognizing the red flags before it escalates like it did with us. I suppose you could call that a form of justice.